I got to tell you, I went home yesterday. I'm glad I got home when I did because about, I guess noon in Cabot, the skies opened up and there were biblical floods. There really were. And there was some bouncing and crashing and all kinds of stuff with the thunderstorms that rolled through our area. So I was going to go out and get some stuff to drink, some cokes, and I decided I don't need a coke that bad, and I stayed home and just I finished up. I've been watching. It's been out for a while, but I sat down and watched the show The Stand, which was based on Stephen King's book, which I think is one of his probably the best book that he's ever written. And they left out a lot of important stuff. I mean, they really did. That you know what's interesting about it is it shows that the king at one time uh, had some spirituality about him. He's kind of let that wane and disappear over the years. I think probably some of that went away with his drinking problems that he had and things of that nature. But I mean, you read his stuff now, and it's a shadow of what he wrote when he first started. I mean, it's just not even close. It really isn't. I mean, I remember picking up Carrie and reading it and went, "Wow, that's great." And then I read Salem's Lot, which I thought was the first book I had read in a long time. It came out when I was in college, and I didn't look forward to turning the light out when I went to sleep. It got really that book is just creepy, creepy, creepy. The part in the book where uh, the main protagonist's friend shows up outside his window, floating 2 floors up, and is running his fingernails down the window and sounds like a chalkboard. That is a creepy segment of that book, man. I'm just telling you, that's a creepy, creepy part of that book. Really, really is. But it is a great book. And I didn't think he could do anything better than Salem's Lot. And then he came out with The Stand. And I'm going to tell you what, as I watched it, over the last 2 days, it came to my attention as I was watching it. This is the story of Moses and the Jewish people, and how they escaped from Egypt and all the rest. I mean, it was really it's as an allegory, it's really good, and just has. I mean, as you get to the end, and it keeps why they had to have Whoopi Goldberg, I'll never know, but they had Whoopi Goldberg play Mother Abigail, and she says you have to make a stand, and that's just really great. It's a very good book, and well worth your time to read it, because I'm going to tell you, you're not going to read it in a day. It's it's a long book, but it's really good. There's a couple of characters that are in the book that I don't exactly understand why King put them in the book, but he put them in nonetheless. But you can identify yourself with several of the characters in the book. We all uh, feel like people don't pay attention to us, that they uh, you want to feel important, you want to feel wanted, but for whatever reason you're just not that guy or gal that comes across as the cool kid, and everybody keeps their distance from you. I mean, I knew guys and gals like that when I was in high school. I was kind of like that because I was one of those people. I don't know how you were, Steve, but I wrote for the school newspaper. I uh, I was a photographer for the school yearbook. I acted in school plays, but on the other side of that, I played football, I played basketball, and I played baseball. I sang in the choir. I just did everything. I did a lot of stuff. And the people in the choir looked at me weird because I played sports. My sports buddies looked weird at me because I sang in the choir and acted on stage. And I kind of felt like a loner every once in a while. Really did. Felt like, and and then I wrote a column every 2 weeks for the school newspaper, and I would say things that some people would go, "You don't like porn, Elswick?" That kind of stuff. And no, I didn't like porn. Still don't like porn. I think it dehumanizes people. I don't know many women that I've ever gone out with that want to be treated like a porn star. I really haven't. This is why you listen to the show. Dave Elswick talks like he feels. So anyway, I just don't understand that. Did you feel like you were an outsider a lot of times? You got to push your button. Whatever button you got to push it. So you're on. There you are.
It helps when you turn the microphone on.
Yeah.
People want to talk to you, you have to have the mic on. Yes, occasionally, but I was kind of one of those guys that I wasn't necessarily popular, but I was friends with everybody. You know what I mean? I got along with just about all the groups to different cliques, but I didn't fit in any of them. So I understood that. I mean, I kind of was the same way. I didn't have near the extracurricular activities that you did, but I did play sports, but I was also involved in other little things too, that introduced me to different groups.
Right. Yeah, I got a little bit of athleticism in me, and used that during high school. Carried me through the first year of college as well. Baseball did, but it was kind of weird because those kind of groups, they really are particular about who they let in.
Oh, sure.
Into their core groups. I mean, I can't tell you how many guys came up to me and said, Elswick, you'd be a great guy if you just not put that choir robe on, that kind of stuff. And I've said, but I like singing, and then the last thing, I was a Christian then as I am now, and that caused some problems at times because, look, when I was in high school was when the Jesus movement was just getting underway. Let's just put it this way. Not everybody appreciated the Jesus movement. They didn't. I found myself on the outs with my church because of some of the things that I embraced about people coming in and not wearing a three-piece suit and being part of the church service and things of that nature. But it's kind of it was an interesting story. But that's kind of what The Stand is all about. Harold, he so badly wants to be accepted, and he's not, and he's a little off kilter, and then he's in love with his former babysitter, and that makes it very difficult for him as well because she don't see him the same way he sees them.
Yeah. I never saw The Stand or read the book.
Yeah.
But I did read one of his more recent ones called 11/23/63.
That's about Kennedy's assassination.
About Kennedy's assassination. The book is phenomenal. It's really good. It's unbelievable story. But then I tried to watch the series, and the series is nothing like the book. I mean, nothing like it. I mean, the only thing that's the same is maybe the title.
Well, Carrie, they when they made that into a movie, they did a lot of the stuff in the book. All right, it followed along narratively like the book was written, but by the time now you watch The Stand, and there's about a third of the book in The Stand, and it's 10 episodes long. So you got the main characters, but you don't, and rightly so, because the book is so long. You'd have to you'd have to do 5 seasons for all the different characters that are in the stand. But like the trash man, and he has such a small part in the series, and he's got such a big part in the book. I mean, there was a reason why King gave him so many pages, and the trash man, that character is in our communities now. Kind of person who just wants to destroy things because he likes to watch it burn. Kind of like in Batman, right? And Alfred says that there's just some people who want to see the world burn, and that's exactly what the trash man is. And he's throughout the book, he's setting fires and things of that nature, and talks about the glee he has as he sits and watches everything be destroyed in front of him. Well, there's people like that now. We're hearing them right now after the president was threatened again, and this guy rushed the correspondence dinner. I wonder how the correspondents feel now that they've read his manifesto, and he would have killed every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
He would have killed every last one of them if he had had to.
And I was watching something online, and it was an expert in battling terrorism. I can't remember if he was with the FBI or what, but he was talking about how fortunate and thankful everyone ought to be that it wasn't professionals that did this.
Yeah,
because it could have been unbelievably devastating. He could have, if it was a professional job and they had a suicide vest and maybe even some other explosives, they could have brought down the whole hotel and everybody in it, including the president, the cabinet, the vice president was there.
Everybody was there that runs the government.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been so much worse. And I honestly, I didn't even think about that till I really heard this guy talk. And I'm like, my goodness, you talk about really dodging a bullet. We really did with that, because everybody was there. I think in succession for the presidency,
Yes.
It would have been, I think, up to the pro tem of the Senate, which is like 4 or 5 down the line.
Yes. Yeah, because Johnson was there, the Speaker of the House.
Yep.
So was the Vice President.
Yep.
So was the President. And so were some of the, Scalise was there.
Yep.
And there were other people that were there. And you're right, it would almost decapitated our government.
Yeah. I mean, and again, we're just thankful that this guy was just a radical and just trying to do it on his own, but had some really professional terrorists had that layout and knew the lax security there. It's horrifying to think about.
Well, it's horrifying for me to think that the Secret Service were that lax.
Yes.
I mean,
and continue to be.
Yeah, they were really, really lax. And they got rid of the guy that was there, on leading the charge of the Secret Service when they had the outside shooting where they clipped his ear. But they haven't learned a lot. They really haven't learned a lot.
Which is so suspicious. And I'm not a conspiracy theory guy by any means. I always try to find the rational answer behind stuff instead of going for the conspiracy. But this is the 3rd time on Trump's life. 3rd time.
And it's really more than that. There's like 6 times now.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, but okay. But this is the 3rd real public time.
Close one.
Close. Yeah. My goodness. Why haven't there been changes made? Why haven't there been just a complete overhaul and gotten guys in there and girls who can, will take a bullet for someone and know what they're doing?
Yep. I don't disagree with you on that. I'm tired of looking at that, and I'm tired of the left saying, oh, it really wasn't what you thought you saw, trying to gaslight everybody.
Yeah.
And don't believe your lying eyes, that kind of thing. But yeah, that was bad news. Hey, we got to get a break in. Let's do that. It's 20 after 7. Coming up at 7:35, we'll talk to Congressman Westerman I'm sure he'll have some different things to talk about, dealing with Iran, dealing with some other stuff that's going on. I want to find out if he knows anything about HUD taking over the Little Rock Housing Authority, see if he knows anything about that. So that's all coming up here on the Dave Elswick Show. So don't go anywhere. All right, with you back here on the Dave Elswick Show, 23 minutes after 7. It's a Wednesday, hump day, middle of the week day, over the hill day. We are closer to Friday than we were on Monday. And I guess the major amount of rain that we're going to get this week happened yesterday. I would say in Cabot, we may have got 3/4 of an inch, maybe even an inch. Back my backyard on the patio was filled up pretty good. I got to use a pump in the back because I got a low spot, and it filled up. So yeah,
I think having lived in Cabot for the last 20 years, almost 25 years, I guess now, I think it's an Indian word for like low bottom.
Yeah,
because water just stands everywhere.
I think Cabot really means clay. If you've ever tried to grow anything in Cabot, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, the clay that we have in Cabot is that clay that when it dries out is as hard as concrete.
Yep.
I mean, it really is. And I have tried to grow a couple of plants there and I'm on the top of a ridge, so I got pretty good drainage, to be honest. But boy, the plants just struggle to grow there.
I tell you, one plant that doesn't is bamboo.
Oh, well, bamboo, it will grow anywhere.
And it does in Cabot. I have tried everything in the world to get rid of it because I don't know if someone planted it by on purpose or was it just something that happened naturally. But there's stalks of bamboo that are probably 10 feet high.
Oh, yeah.
A lot adjacent to where I live.
Yeah, that stuff, if you don't have to use bamboo, by all means do not.
Exactly.
Because the way that it multiplies, it sends out shoots under the ground. And you have no idea how far it's gone. and it just grows like crazy. I mean, being on Guam and things like that when I was in the Air Force, I the bamboo we see here is like an inch around. That's in diameter. There, it's like a foot and a half. I mean, it's big, big bamboo, but it grows the same way,
Yeah.
and it just takes over an area. And bamboo, if you put it into your flowers why you would put it in your flowers, I don't know, but if you did, it will take over your flower bed.
Oh yeah, and that's what happened with us. We had a back fence on part of our backyard, and again, it was just everywhere on that fence line. Finally, after years, I mean, probably decades of working and trying to get everything. I mean, I poured diesel fuel on it
Oh my gosh!
just to try to get away. And finally, it's finally cleared away. But like I say, there's a lot adjacent to us that's empty, and it's just kind of a wooded little area. And I bet it's 10 feet tall for sure.
Yeah, well, between bamboo and what's that tree that flowers in the springtime? The white flowers that smell terrible.
I don't know. I know
Yeah,
exactly what you're talking about, but I don't
they
know
spread like just wild weeds all over the place. You see that when you're just about getting to Jacksonville. If you look out around the expressway, there's tons of those trees out there that are just growing wild.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty, but they are trash trees. They really are. All right, we got what we got. We've got some opinion stuff coming up at the bottom of the hour. We'll be giving to you. More needs to be talked about on the left about this crazy stuff that they're talking about. That this was all a black flag operation, and it was a fake try on the president's life. That he's doing it to get people quit talking about the important stuff. Well, the economy's doing well, man. I don't know what you're so worried about. The markets are doing well. Let's see, jobs were created 178,000 jobs this last time. We've gotten past. I think people have figured out this whole thing with the war is not going to drive gas prices up to $8 or $9 a gallon now, so they've calmed down about that. And I believe by the end of May we'll be done with the whole Iran thing. To be honest with you,
See, I think that we need to be, especially if you're looking from a Republican viewpoint for the midterms.
yeah,
This is supposed to be get in and get out, and I think the longer that it stays, the worse it's going to be for the president to be able to have that message of, hey, we need to have control of the Congress again to be able to continue the agenda.
Yep.
I think that's going to be a little bit tougher decision if we don't hurry up and get this thing over with.
yeah. I agree with you. Why people though would want to go back to what was going on during the Biden administration, I can't even.
I can't either.
Understand that. I can't get my hands around it, to be honest. And it just amazes me. There's some people who are like, yeah, it was the greatest time in the history of the United States. Maybe if you made ice cream, it was, but no, it wasn't the greatest time. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back and have some more things for you in the next half hour with Bruce Westerman. All right, we continue on the Dave Elswick Show. I thought I heard the phone ring, and that usually means that Congressman Bruce Westerman is getting a hold of us to talk to us at this time every Wednesday here on the Dave Elswick Show. Congressman, how are you today?
Doing well, Dave. Good to be with you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. First of all, let me just give you some open green field in front of you. I'll give you the football, you can run with it, and that is what's going on in Washington that we're not hearing about, maybe in the news that we should know about?
Well, today's a big day in Washington, a big week. We weren't even scheduled to be here this week. You know, they put a calendar out at the first of the year, and the speaker wanted us to come back this week because we got some things we're trying to take care of. And just on the calendar this week is the Farm Bill, FISA, and the budget reconciliation so that we can fund the rest of Homeland Security.
Yeah.
And all of that's coming up in one vote here in a little while. And it's, I'm not sure which way it's headed. I've actually got some problems with some of the language in the bill and some of the amendments that are being put in the rule. So we got a lot of work left to do to get all this worked out. And I'm not sure if it's actually going to happen today or not, but we're up here working diligently on it.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that the Democrats have literally held DHS and ICE hostage by what they've been doing, and now you guys have got to do reconciliation, which is what, 51 votes. I mean, you just got to have a majority, but that's not an easy haul right now.
No, and it's bad policy. I mean, no matter how you look at it, it's not the way we should be funding the Department of Homeland Security. What this does, it moves Homeland Security funding to mandatory spending. And the problem we've got with our deficit right now is in mandatory spending.
Right.
And it also takes congressional oversight away because you don't have control of the purse strings anymore if you fund part of an agency for an extended period of time, like this bill would do. So this problem was created by the Democrats because they won't vote to fund Department of Homeland Security. So we're faced with the challenge: do we leave Homeland Security not funded, or do we use this other mechanism? Again, this was because you can't get 60 votes in the Senate. We could pass a funding measure out of the House. We have passed it many times, but the Senate can't pass it without Democrat votes unless we do reconciliation. So I think we've allowed ourselves to get backed in the corner, and we're scared of the ramifications if Homeland Security doesn't get funded. I think sometimes if people are going to refuse to fund parts of the government, then we should have to feel the pain of those things not being funded. Else you can just manipulate whatever you want to. And, you know, the bad part about this is we're talking about Homeland Security. We're talking about Custom and Border Patrol, which not only enforces immigration laws, they also deal with all the trade that's coming in and collection of tariffs and duties and all of that. So you could have not only a disruption in illegal immigration, but you could also have a disruption in the economy because you don't have Customs and Border Patrol agents. You don't have people, we think about TSA agents that are part of DHS working without being paid. And this seems to be a solution to try to fix a problem that the Democrats created and refused to work with us on. And so now it's like we're being forced into fixing their problem while they sit back and eat popcorn.
Yeah. So what is the media not reporting? They are not giving people the whole story here. And that's why this is not weighing on the Democrat Party that much, correct?
Right. Well, they're saying Republicans are in control, so it's the Republicans' fault. And it's kind of, where does the buck stop kind of thing. And And you could make that argument, but the fact is we have to have Democrat votes in the Senate to pass an appropriation bill unless the Senate does away with the filibuster. And we're not getting the Democrat votes in the Senate. We're not getting the Democrat votes in the House, but we can pass bills in the House with just a simple majority. So the national press is immediately trying to blame the Republicans for the shutdown simply because we're in the majority, without telling the whole story that it's the Democrats' votes that we need that we can't get.
Yeah, kind of interesting that they blamed you when you were the minority for putting the monkey wrench in the workings, and now that you're in the majority, it's all your fault as well. None of it is ever on the or on the Democrats.
No, they do everything right according to the national press, which I think most of them vote Democrat. But that's the hand we're dealt, and we'll figure out how to overcome it somehow. But it's not the way a government should be run. And it's maybe it's going to force a bad policy decision where we fund agencies with mandatory spending because the safety and security of our country is at stake.
How many people really do you feel in the House? I mean, we got to talk about the House with you because you're a congressman. You probably have a feel for the way it is over in the Senate as well. But as far as the House, how many people look at the deficit that we have, the debt that we run up, what is it, $39 trillion now, and go, we can't continue doing this? But it's like yelling down an empty well. You just keep hearing your own voice come back at you.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that see that as a problem that will take tough votes to change that, but there doesn't seem to be a majority. There's always some reason why we can't address those issues. They're not popular political issues. If you look at where the problem is with the debt, it's in mandatory spending. And you say, where's mandatory spending? Well, it's Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, interest on the debt, and a bunch of social welfare programs. And tell me which one of those you want to fix. And the truth is, we need to fix all of them,
right?
Because all of those things are driving our country over a cliff, and these programs are going to become insolvent, except for Medicaid. It's an endless pit. There's no cap, no restrictions, no fund on Medicaid. It's just however much money states spend, the federal government will match that spending. So, and it's a much higher part of the match that the federal government spends than what the states spend. So, a lot of states look at Medicaid as an economic program where they spend 10% and get 90% from the government,
right,
or from the federal government. So you got that going on. You got Social Security that it's people have paid into it while they're working. The math is not working out. The Social Security Trust Fund is being depleted faster than money's being put in it. At some point, that fund will be depleted, and the only money left to pay out Social Security will be what's paid in by the people working that year. That's what they call insolvency. And then we get the same thing on the Medicare Trust Fund. So if we want those programs to last, we definitely need to reform those programs. But I can tell you those aren't popular issues to take on. And if we keep going, the next 5 or 10 years, we're going to wake up and we're going to face this issue. And then I guess something will have to happen. And, one option on that is, well, we'll just go borrow more money to keep paying these debts that we can't afford. When there are ways to fix it right now, ways that could have been fixed 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing of thinking that China and Japan and other large economies in this world are going to buy our debt or finance our debt by buying bonds and things, and that kind of notion, that cow has left the barn.
yeah, I go back to, we had King Charles spoke to us yesterday,
Right.
and I think he did a pretty good job. He was I was impressed with what he said for the most part. But I thought about Margaret Thatcher, and she has one of my favorite sayings of all time, and that is, socialism works great until you run out of other people's money.
That's right.
And it's been tried over and over and over again, and it just doesn't work. So another solution is to get more people working. We have a very low labor participation rate. So if for every 1% we increase the labor participation rate, it typically increases the GDP by $1 trillion.
Wow.
And we're, since the 1960s, on average, the federal government collects about 17.5% in taxes of the GDP. So think if you add $1 trillion to the economy, that's $175 billion of income. And if you've got more people working, you've got less people dependent on the social welfare programs. If we stop waste, fraud, and abuse, we'll make the Medicare and Social Security Trust Fund last even longer. If we can get healthcare costs under control, which are growing faster than pretty much everything else in the economy, we can make Medicare dollars last longer. There are policies that we're working on that this administration's pushing to help lower costs and to stop waste, fraud, and abuse that are important, but it's still going to take fundamental changes to the way a lot of these programs are structured if we're ever going to address the debt.
All right, we got to get a break in, Congressman. Let's do that, and then we'll come back and finish up our conversation for this Wednesday here on the Dave Elswick Show. 7:48, 12 minutes until 8 o'clock on the Dave Elswick Show. All right, we got about 10 minutes left here with the congressman. He's joining us from. Well, are you you're in Washington right now? You went and heard the King speak last night. You enjoyed the speech that he gave. You thought that he basically hit the right notes on the right topics. The only person that's really causing us any problem in the UK is Starmer. And he's just showing that he doesn't have any cojones, is what he's doing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if he makes the decisions he has because he's got so much of a minority group of Muslims in his country, or what.
And if you look at the King's role as the head of state, he's theoretically above politics. He doesn't really talk about politics, and he talked a lot about history and really didn't get into policies. And some of the things he said was pretty humorous. He talked about the tale of two Georges, talking about his fifth great grandfather, King George, who we obviously wrote the breakup letter to, and then we had George Washington here in the U.S. So, and he was assuring us he wasn't here to execute some rear flank move. He was pretty funny in some of his comments. He said the UK and the USA are exactly alike except for the language.
That's interesting.
And, yeah. So yeah, that was a good thing to have the king here. But we've got pressing policies here at home that we need to deal with, and we're working every day to try to deal with those issues. But there are lots of headwinds, as we discussed earlier.
Yeah, let me ask you, the Democrats just refuse to literally work with you guys. Although yesterday we had Ryan Norris on here on the Dave Elswick Show from Americans for Prosperity. He does that every Tuesday with us. And he brought up your name and brought up you particularly, saying that you can get people from the Democrats to many times support, conservative policies. What's your special elixir that's helping you do that?
Well, there's different groups of Democrats up here, and there's some that there's issues that you can work with them on. And most of the time it's just looking at the facts and finding somebody that wants to work for the good of the country, and we can work together on issues when we do that. It's really the far left of the Democrat Party that's sounding the bell and that's got the attention of the media. But when we look at certain economic issues and issues with natural resources, we've been able to do a lot of good work on the Natural Resources Committee. We actually, last year, there were 63 bills signed into law by President Trump, and 28 of those bills came through the Natural Resources Committee, passed out of the House and passed the Senate and went to the president's desk. So, we were able to get 28 times have bills that could get the 60 votes in the Senate. And to do that, you have to figure out where you can get bipartisan support in the House to make that happen. And you've also got to realize that you always go back to what Reagan said. If you can get 80% of what you want, you should consider that a huge victory. And I tell people all the time, I think I could write the perfect bill in a vacuum, but it's never going to pass the Senate. And you kind of start with what you think the best legislative approach is, and then you work with people and you talk through issues and you give where you can and you hold the line where you can't. And somehow we've been able to get a lot of bills passed, and we're keeping that streak up. I think we had passed 84 bills out of the House last year, out of our committee, and 28 of them actually got signed into law, and we're up to 110 bills out of our committee that have passed the House, if you add what we've done this year. So we're also getting to the point where it's going to be mostly campaign season, and it's going to be harder and harder to get those bills passed. But I met yesterday with Senator Mike Lee, who chairs a committee in the Senate that has a lot of cross jurisdiction with my committee in the House. And we had the ranking member on my committee, Jared Huffman, and the ranking member on the Senate committee, Martin Heinrich. And we talked about how we can keep getting bills passed. So that's how you get legislation done. The press doesn't really care about that. They don't care about things that we can agree on and move forward on, but they really like it when there's friction and conflict, and you can get more clicks on social media and throw more ads on cable TV.
So what's your take after the assassination attempt that happened at the correspondence dinner? What do you see there?
Well, they say correlation doesn't mean causation, but it seems to me like since we've had more internet access and more social media, that people seem to get radicalized more, and a lot of other things have happened in our culture, and unfortunately, this seems more normal. Not just assassination attempts on the president and federal officials, but mass shootings and those things. It's really a sad commentary on our country. But if you look at the specifics of how did this guy get in how was he able to take weapons into that hotel? You can look at it a couple of different ways. He didn't get past the final security barrier, but he got really close to it.
Right.
Nobody was killed. Thank the good Lord for that. But people were very close to getting killed. I guess a Secret Service agent got shot. If you've ever been around an event where the president's at, the security it's unbelievable, but
Yep.
there still can be holes in that security. And, it's just like the shooting at Butler. How did that guy get on that building? With all the security sweeps they do and everything, even with the king going into the Capitol yesterday, not only did the Capitol Police and the Secret Service and all of our agencies do a sweep of the Capitol, they have the British security officials in there doing their own sweep. The buildings here on Capitol Hill are very secure in a lot of ways. I'm not sure that we need to be doing big events like the correspondence dinner where you've got all these officials together in a hotel ballroom. The president, he quickly made the case for his new ballroom that he's building over at the White House. That's probably a much better venue because you can control the outer perimeter so much better. Like, I don't know how many people have had a chance to actually go into the White House, but you go through several layers to get into the White House. Even as a member of Congress, I go through 2 security checks to get into the White House.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have that pretty well locked down. They really do. Well, Congressman, we're out of time. Wish we had some more time, but we don't. I'll let you get back to work, doing the work that you were elected to do, and we'll talk to you again next Wednesday.
Thank you, Dave. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Congressman Bruce Westerman, here on the Dave Elswick Show. I just want to say that as a listener, you have a really great opportunity to hear our elected officials all the time here on my show. It's one of the things I've always believed in. And, they come on a regular basis and talk to you and explain things to you. And that shouldn't be taken for granted. All right, let's take a break. We'll get the news in for you, and then we'll come back. We're going to have a libertarian candidate here in the show later in the show. I want to talk about the economy a little bit when we get back here on the Dave Elswick Show. Okay, so we move into the 8 o'clock hour here of the Dave Elswick Show. Our first hour went relatively quickly, especially once we got Congressman Westerman on the air with us. That went really, really fast. I looked up and it was like, oop, I'm almost out of time. And I had a bunch of questions for him today. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the House and the Senate. You heard him talking about, because I wanted to start off by asking him what you should be paying attention to uh, on Capitol Hill. And he said, of course, we should be watching what's going on as far as Iran, and we should be watching all the different things, the DHS funding and all the rest that has to yet happen and has not. And the DHS funding needs to be done by the end of the week. And within his answers, I kind of got a feeling like he didn't think it was going to get done. I mean, I really did. He admitted that he has some problems with some of the amendments dealing with Homeland Security and things of that nature. And, you know, we got along for a long time well without having Homeland Security. I think we can probably still get by without it. And, but since we decided that we were going to start it, the Congress should get with the program and fund it. But you know, Democrats don't want to do that right now. You know, they don't like ICE. They want open borders, and they want people to be able to get in this country as easy as they can possibly get in. The president, as much as you may hate him, the bottom line is he's done well on shutting down the border. There's very few people making their way illegally into our country right now, and that is directly the responsibility of the president, and he has done that for you, and it's got it done. And I think he's done a lot of other really great things. The media does not report on those things. They question. Let me just tell you, there's always a question that can be asked about anything. Whether it's a pertinent question is a different story. And that's what you as a voter have to decide. What's the pertinent question? I mean, here's a good one for you. Should we be spending all the time that we spent yesterday, complaining, bitching, and moaning about Kimmel instead of, looking at DHS and figuring out how we're going to, get it funded? I think that's much more important than Jimmy Kimmel showing his butt and saying a lot of the things that he's doing. I thought that what we heard from folks this morning dealing with Kimmel is true. If this was a comedian and he was doing a late night show and he had been on during the time Obama was president, if all he did was feed the country negativity about Obama, he'd been fired a long time ago, or he would have changed his whole routine. And Kimmel, he doesn't have anything good to say about the president. He doesn't like the president, and he makes it very clear he hates the president. And there's other comedians that are the same way. I don't understand why he lets them say whatever it is they want to say. He doesn't shut them up. Now he may say that they're a 2-bit hack and things of that nature, but if the truth hurts, sorry, shoe fits, sorry. All right, I said I wanted to talk about what was going on in the economy, and I do. I want you to. A lot of people are saying that the economy is in shambles. That is not true. The economy is getting stronger and stronger. When you especially take into consideration, in light of what's going on with Iran, the labor market has improved as well. Consumer confidence rose in April to the best level of the year as consumers took a more optimistic view of the jobs market and their income prospects. You think you're going to make more money this year. I think you probably will. The gains are particularly notable given that we've had major headwinds for us as consumers during the April 1st through April 22nd survey period. Brent crude oil prices surged on the back of the Middle East conflict. It sent gasoline prices visibly higher at the pump. The conference board's own write-in data has showed that consumer mentions of prices, oil and gas, and war all increased in frequency compared to March. The nearly 4 point, this beat over the consensus estimate. That's from the all the pointy headed eggheads that said the economy would go down this much or go up this much or whatever. They're usually never right, but it went up by 4 points, which the economists didn't see over the consensus estimate that was put out there, that showing that economists have overweighed the impact of energy prices and geopolitical anxiety on you, the consumer, while underweighing the stabilizing effect of labor markets that continue to show resilience as we move forward. We're putting a lot of jobs. We're filling a lot of jobs. For instance, the March jobs report showed a rebound in hiring with 178,000 positions added, and the unemployment rate ticked down to 4.3%. Let me put that into a way that you can understand it. Everybody keeps telling you that we've got a recession that's coming. And I'm not going to say that there's not a few markers out there that don't say we are looking at a recession. We are nowhere near a depression. During the Great Depression back in the 20s, the unemployment rate in the United States was near 25%. That's one out of every, 4 people that had a job lost it. And it was a dark time here in the country. And that's when we had soup lines and, people were losing their jobs left and right and losing their homes and had their savings done away with. Now, I do believe we need to take care of our debt since it's $39 trillion. It would seem to me we need to get that under control, or we may find ourselves in a worse situation than the Great Depression. If countries, and they've started to do this, start not buying our bonds, which help fund our debt, because that's kind of what they're buying is our debt. That's not good. We're going to have the problem of trying to figure out how to pay off our debt. I hear people say, wow, man, they're saying that we might have a little bit of a surplus at the end of the year. They should send that back to the people. I'm of the opinion they've already sent that money back to the people in governmental programs and things of that nature. It's time that we take that and put it against the extra money we have, and put it against the money that we owe. I don't think we can ever pay our debt back. I mean, at $39 trillion, that is so much money. It's incomprehensible. But unless we pay it down some, it's going to cause bigger problems in the future, and we really do have to deal with the future and making sure that we don't get too far out in front of our skis. In fact, I think we kind of kicked off our skis as we came off the ski jump, and we're in the air still, and we're getting ready to come down and land, and you don't have any skis to land on, and You're just trying to figure out how to do it without destroying yourself when you land. So 178,000 new positions were added so over the last hiring time, and the unemployment rate has ticked down to 4.3%. I think some unemployment would go down even more if people were told that they have to work to be able to get a government program. I, to be honest, I'm glad that we're in a country that will help and take care of people when they fall on hard times. But you shouldn't take that for granted, and take your neighbor's goodwill for granted, because that's who's paying it. It may be the guy that lives right next to you. Maybe he makes a couple $100,000 a year, and the federal government is taking an inordinate amount from him in taxes. Well, he's in essence paying for you. And many of you complain because you don't have enough flat screen TVs, or you don't have a brand new car, or whatnot, or that you can't eat steak 3 times a week. I don't even eat steak 1 time a week. It's just people in our country, to say that we're fat, dumb, and happy is really a misnomer. We're not only fat, dumb, and happy, but most of the people in this country feel entitled. I got this coming. I work hard every day. I go to work, 6 days a week. I work 9, 10 hours a day. I deserve this. The problem is with that kind of thought process, no, you don't deserve it. You deserve what you get from what you have signed a contract to be paid. That's what you deserve. The whole thing that what the government is doing for people is beyond the pale. Not saying that it's not because we got big hearts. We do, but a big heart should not take you up to $39 trillion in debt. I mean, I give 10% of everything I make to my church. That's one of the things that I believe in. And if I can give a little bit more at times, I give a little bit more, like when they have summer camps and things for the youth. I know that there's some youth that can't go unless, I pony up a few extra dollars out of my pocket, and I do, because I think it's important for them to do that. But that's out of the heart and the spirituality of our country that we do that. I don't run up my credit cards and say, well, they need money, I'll give them $10,000. I'll run this credit card all the way up to its max of $10,000, give it to the church. The church doesn't expect me to do that, nor should I do that. God doesn't expect me to do that. At least he's not led me to believe that I'm supposed to do that. So it's something to keep in mind. All right, let's take a break. We're doing a lot better in the our economy than a lot of people want to give them credit for. So I just wish they would quit spending money like drunken sailors. And I got to apologize to folks that are out there that are sailors. I don't mean to disparage you. All right, that, when we're talking about spending money. Hey, don't forget about East End Towing. They are ready to take care of you. I use them consistently. Last time I had to use them was about 2 months ago. My battery went dead on my SUV, and I had to have the SUV towed over to Joe's garage. And I called them, told them where it was at. They came out, they got it, hooked it up, took it to Joe's garage, left it there. And then Joe's put the new battery in, and now Mama's happy because she has a car that works at the house. Get a hold of them when you need them, because they will help you out on the road. I had about 4 years ago, I had another tow company. I called them, said I need a tow, and they said, okay, where are you? I told them. They came by and they drove by me. I saw them go by, and I called them. I said, where's the tow truck? Why didn't they stop? And they said, well, you're in the left shoulder off the fast lane, and we won't stop there and take care of you if you're in that, lane. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, I've been waiting for 45 minutes for you guys to come by. You finally come by, and then you pass me by. Why didn't you tell me that to start off with? Why didn't you say, well, where are you located? Are you in the right, area? You should have told me that. Well, they didn't. I never used them again. Never be going back to them again. I won't say who it was. You probably have tried to use them before, and maybe you've run into the same problem. But Eastside Towing, they do the right job for you. You give them a call, they'll come out and get you where you need to go. That's Eastside Towing. We've been talking about the Southern Poverty Law Group, SPLC, and they're going to end up in court because they've been misleading people, and they have allegedly been funneling money to hate groups, real hate groups, so that they can keep going. I mean, Charlottesville. Remember Charlottesville when Obama was president? Well, they put allegedly they put up about $200,000 to some white supremacist groups to get out there and do that. And they go after a lot of good people. I don't like the SPLC, never have liked them, and they decide who they think are hate groups. And let me just say that what they think are hate groups are not usually what we think of as hate groups. Moms for Liberty is one of those groups that they say is a hate group, and I've worked with Moms for Liberty and at different times over the last couple of years. And, the mama bears get them upset. They get things done a lot of times. And they said that this was a hate group. They hate gays. They hate, they hate the typical litany of people that the SPLC says that if you don't if you don't hug these people, then you're a hater, and that's not the case. Excuse me. Problem is, I can disagree with you and still think of you as a human being that needs to be able to, have a job and things of that nature. I don't look to string you up or anything like that. Well, the Southern Poverty Law Center labeled the Moms for Liberty a hate group just a couple of days before they had their national conference. And what that did is it caused all kinds of protests to descend on them and inundate the attendees with all kinds of threats of violence. Now, they'll tell you that Moms for Liberty were inundating people with threats of violence, when in fact, and this is the way the left works, the left points their finger and says, "You're doing this and you're doing that," when in fact, it's not you that's doing it, but they're the ones that are doing it. They typically are projecting what they themselves are doing. Over 600 parents, conservative leaders, and five presidential candidates, including Donald Trump, gathered for 4 days at the Philadelphia Downtown Marriott Hotel for the Moms for Liberty National Summit back in 2023, just 3 weeks before the SPLC added the grassroots parents group to its list of extremist groups. Tina Deskovich, a co-founder and CEO of Moms for Liberty, told the Daily Wire, and that this is not where this story comes from, that the pushback was almost immediate and frightening. Quote, their label sent thousands of protesters to our event. Protesters smashed in windows at the venue the night before, spray painted over historical displays. They said they surrounded the venue for days. Philly PD had to call in the riot force and extra equipment. The following months and weeks were filled with continued threats and harassment. Now, I've been part and parcel to the left's shenanigans. I was at a Americans for Prosperity meeting in Washington, D.C. a few years ago, where the left circled around us and wouldn't let people in, wouldn't let people out to do their thing. So anyway, adding us right before the 2023 National Summit, she said, where we hosted the presidential candidates, was not an incident or an accident. It was calculated and coordinated. The SPLC has come under renewed scrutiny after the Justice Department last week released a sweeping indictment of the controversial leftist group. The SPLC is alleged to have funneled millions of dollars to hate groups like the Ku Klux Klan. I'll tell you more about this in just a moment. I've got to get to the news. That's coming up at 8:30, and that is here on the Dave Elswick Show right now. All right. So I've got Michael Packo here. He is the state chair of the Libertarian Party here in Arkansas. He's also running for Secretary of State. So let's get your take on this. What do you see about all this rigmarole that's going on about the Secretary of State and the vote that went down in the primary?
Well, the Secretary of State is an important job. The voting is fundamental to our democracy or republic, and the people have lost trust in it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But the reason I'm running for Secretary of State as a libertarian, as kind of an outsider of the process, is that that the Secretary of State is in charge of elections in Arkansas, and it's too important a job to leave the Republicans and Democrats.
All right, so a lot of people are tired of saying that, well, they didn't do this and they didn't do that. Well, those laws were passed by the parties. Okay, they agreed to those rules, and they should be followed. If they haven't been followed, then it should give us pause if we can be, for sure that it was a fair election. So I'm of the opinion that they should have to abide by the rules. Now, I don't know if I'm of the opinion that a judge, if he's going to find that the election had problems with it, that he can't call a new election, but that he's got to give the win to somebody, and so he's going to say, well, this candidate had more votes at the end of the election when we first counted, even though it might have been erroneous, and we'll make them the Secretary of State. See, I got problems with that too. Seems like to me you got to have another election.
Well, that they had the runoff election. There was recounting that didn't change the outcome. So the rules were followed. I think the really disappointing thing about it all is that such a small fraction of the state's population even participated.
Oh, yeah.
Like less than 2% are going to decide who the Republican candidate is, and by all odds, so who the Secretary of State will be, given that they'll have an R behind their name. So, that's a real problem with our democracy, is just a basic apathy among the voters. And I think there's a good reason for that, the two political parties, the major parties, are not providing us with choices that get us excited, that make us want to go to the ballot box. Matter of fact, what's the point of going? So many of our candidates are running unopposed and have no real opposition, even if there is token opposition. So people are just staying home, and that's regrettable.
Yeah, I think it's regrettable, because I think it's one of the greatest opportunities each citizen has to make a difference. And you go, people say, well, one vote. No. You and everybody else that's not voting, that's a sizable group of people that could make a sizable difference.
It's the way to make your voice heard.
Yeah, I used to be a member of the Libertarian Party. I left. There's some things I didn't agree with the way the party swung. I was in the party when Harry Brown ran for president. I still quote Harry Brown on my show from time to time. That I tell people government programs. Harry Brown used to say, "Hi, I'm from the government," and then they break your legs. And then they come back and they see a couple months later and said, "I'm going to help you out now," and they give you a pair of crutches.
Yeah. Harry Brown had a really good way of conveying libertarian ideas in a kind of down home style.
Yeah, he was good. He was really good, and he would show, 4 or 5% during national elections. But why do you think the Libertarian Party hasn't picked up more seats in state elections? I mean, in state representatives, state senators, things of that nature, because the parties, a lot of the things that they stand for are what I think the average person would like to see in politics.
Well, the odds are stacked against us, and there's a real mindset among the public that I'd like to vote for a libertarian, but they can't win. And that's really not the point. First of all, that's kind of a circular logic. Of
Yeah,
course,
I
we
know.
can't win if you don't vote for us.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But that's not the point that you're voting to win. You don't get a prize if your vote turns out to be the one for the winning candidate. It's an opportunity to express your opinion, to express your idea, and that's kind of the point that I'm trying to emphasize. And I think many of the other libertarian candidates in this year's election are pushing hard. Is that a vote for libertarian is a vote against the two-party duopoly. It's a vote that says we're not happy with the limited choices that we're getting from the two parties, and that we want another choice. So opinion polls consistently show, the last one I saw was over 60% said that Americans don't think that we're getting enough choices in the two-party system, and that a third party would be welcome. And whenever I hear those kind of polls, I say, hey, we're here.
Yeah, you chuckle, don't you?
Yeah,
Because you
yeah.
say, well, we've been around for quite a while, and nobody is, voting for us, and
Yeah,
it doesn't
and
make any sense.
Here in Arkansas, this is the 8th time that we'll have candidates on the ballot. We have to petition every 2 years to get those candidates on the ballot. That's a lot of hard work. And by the time we get on the ballot, we're kind of worn out. Then it's time to, find candidates and run in the elections. And so that puts us at a disadvantage as well, that we really can't break into that system. And that's what I'd like to talk about on the campaign trail for Secretary of State this year, because, like I said, the Secretary of State is the chief election official, and I'd like to talk about the bad state of elections that we have in
Okay, well,
Arkansas.
let's talk about that. You're the libertarian candidate for Secretary of State. What do you want to do that's different from the people that you're challenging?
Well, that's a tricky question, because the Secretary of State is just an administrative role. You run the office, there's business registrations, there's the Capitol grounds, and there's the elections. But I would be an advocate for changing legislation, which I wouldn't be able to do personally as Secretary of State, but to talk about the reasons that we have so few choices. Just for one thing, our election cycle is just so early. If you're going to run for office as a Republican or a Democrat, you've got to go down to the Capitol and sign up over a year in advance of the election. And really, there's no practical reason for that. And so you end up with very few competitors, even within the major parties. If you look at the number of primaries that we had, weren't all that many. Over 2/3 of our state legislature are already seated. They're facing no opposition in November, and that's all partly because it requires you to really plan so far in advance if you're going to challenge one of those legislators. And if the incumbents do something right now that you don't like, you might say, well, I ought to run for office and take on that guy. Too late. You can't get in. It's even too late to run as a libertarian now. We still have months ahead. So that's one thing. I think they make it very difficult to read an independent as well. I think we should have more independents on the ballot, and same problem. You have to sign up over a year in advance to run as an independent, have to go out and collect signatures during the dead of winter, and so it's not surprising we don't see very many independents. And I think we should change the laws to make it easier for third parties like the Libertarians or even the Greens or the Constitution Party to stay on the ballot once we've petitioned. I mean, we've done this 8 times in a row now, collected 10,000 signatures, turned them in, got on the ballot. And then because we don't get enough votes for president or governor, we don't get to remain a political party. And there really ought to be a kind of a broader test. I mean, our candidates run at all levels of government, and just to judge us on the basis of the outcome of the gubernatorial election is pretty narrow, broader criteria.
Okay, well, since you think there should be broader, how would you work that out? I mean, if you were Secretary of State, you'd have to get laws changed.
Yeah.
At least you would be from a position that you could go talk to elected officials and say, hey, why don't we look at this? And they may or they may not do what you want to do, but you would at least have, a speaking platform that you could use.
Absolutely. And I have that speaking platform now as a candidate. And so that's why I'm appealing to the voters. If you agree with me that we deserve more choices, that we shouldn't have just one candidate per election. Sometimes we have two. Then vote for the Libertarian. That's a vote for change, a vote for more choices, for a more open process. And you're right. The Secretary of State can't change those things. We've got to lobby to change the laws. And the elected politicians aren't really all that in favor of giving themselves more competition. But if that's what the people want and that's what the people vote for, then I think they're going to have to listen.
Now, when you consider that, we believe in we the people here in the state of Arkansas, or the people rule.
Regnant populace.
But it seems like we don't. We say it, but I don't think that we really believe it. How's that one for you?
Well, that seems to be the case when you look at the statistics. Most of the incumbents that are running for re-election this year face no opposition in the fall. Most of them had no opposition in the primaries, which means they're basically going to coast into office without ever receiving a vote, having only paid their filing fee to the party and not upsetting the party bigwigs to draw a primary opponent. And basically they get to take their seat without a single vote being cast in their favor. I would think that some of those politicians would appreciate having a Libertarian to run against, just to give a little bit more credibility to their election.
Yeah. I don't think that you want somebody to end up running against you, to prove a point. You know what I'm saying?
Well, no, but to have a mandate, to have a sizable group of people that you went out and courted and asked to vote for me, and if they get the votes, then they have a mandate.
Yeah, let me talk. You're the chair of the Libertarian Party here in Arkansas. How would you like to see things changed? Like you're talking, going out and have to get 10,000 signatures, literally about every 2 years. To be able to be on the ballot. And you've done that 8 straight years already. So I think that you've made the point that you're around to stay. You're going to be here. How would you change things? How would you make sure? Because you can't just throw the doors open and say anybody can run, because then you would end up with everybody running, kind of.
Right. No, I think the problem is, and I think the Libertarian Party's experience has demonstrated this, is that it's possible for a third party to get on the ballot. You can petition. We've done it 8 times now. But the real challenging part is making the grade to remain a political party, because right now it's only based on the votes in either the governor's election or the presidential election. And at the top of the ticket, people tend to think, well, this is really important. I can't, vote for Libertarian here. But we get lots of votes down ballot for other constitutional offices, for the legislature. And so I would like to see us have a system where a party can retain its political party status if they get 3%, maybe 2% of the vote in any statewide race. And that's the way they do it in our neighbors in Missouri and Oklahoma. In Missouri, it's 2%, in Oklahoma, 2.5%. Arkansas seems to be fixated on this 3%. But, if our candidates were able to get 3% for a statewide office, that would include all the constitutional offices in the U.S. Senate, then that should be good enough to qualify to retain our political party status. And if you look back at the record ever since 2012, when we've been running candidates, except for that first time around, we have had statewide candidates get more than 3% every single time. And, that's disappointing when we see all those people voting for us, and yet it doesn't count because it only matters on the top of the ticket.
Yeah, I think that it should be loosened some. I really do. I think that you all have proven that the Libertarian Party is going to be around. I think the Green Party, and they're kind of a toss-up there as far as whether they should stay on the ballot or not.
They pioneered a couple of the lawsuits that really made it possible for third parties to get on the ballot in the first place. But I think after 2 or 3 times running candidates, they ran into the same wall that we're seeing right now, where we can't retain our status. We have to petition again, and they kind of lost momentum.
Let me ask this question, and this is a question I ask any chair of the party. And whether it's in Missouri or Arkansas or Indiana, and that is, why does it seem, because I see this here in Arkansas too, where people say, yeah, I want to get things changed, but I'm going to start by running for one of the biggest offices in the state to make the change. I want to be governor. Well,
Mhm.
maybe what you need to do is be a state rep first and start to change there. Uh, I don't see most any party doing that. Is there a reason that you think that is?
Well, we have a strategy of doing both. There are a lot of activists in the party who think we need to run candidates for lower level offices where we have a better chance of winning. And we have a lot of candidates at that level running. We have an elected constable. We have candidates for justice of the peace in counties around the state. But at the same time, the bully pulpit, the place where you can get the word out, is in these higher level races where
Mhm.
the news is covering it. If I were running for justice of the peace here in Pulaski County, I probably wouldn't be on your show right now
No, that's
talking
not
about
true. You
libertarian
would be,
politics.
because
So,
that's
so
something I do.
so we try to do both. We try to do both. We try to run candidates who are seriously going to try to be elected to office and establish a reputation and some experience. And we also have our candidates who go out there and say, have that platform in which to talk about how libertarians might do things differently.
How many total libertarians do you have running this year?
This year, we're at about 19. We had as many as 55 a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But when we had that many candidates, a lot of them were really just paper candidates.
Okay.
They put their names in. They wanted to.
They didn't go out and really beat the
Right.
bushes.
And I think all our candidates this year are really top quality. They're out there to campaign and do the best we can. So we were a little bit more selective, I think, and not deliberately, but I think that's the direction we seem to be going at this time.
All right. How did things go when you guys had your, your meeting, your conference? Did things go fairly smoothly? A couple of years ago, it didn't go so smoothly.
Oh, the national conventions can be really kind of a circus.
Yeah.
The National Convention for the Libertarian Party is coming up next month. It's Labor Day earnings, Memorial Day weekend. So I'm planning to be there in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm the delegation chair, and it looks like we're going to have a little bit of a change in direction from where we've been in the past 2 or 4 years. I think it's going to be a good change, but yeah, you're right. Within any political party, there's a lot of friction, a lot of infighting. We've seen more than our share recently, but I think that we're all coming back together again.
I look at that as iron sharpening iron. That should happen. There should be differences of opinion. They should be, brought out, and they should be, uh, discussed.
Oh yeah, and libertarians love to argue with one another.
Yeah, they do. That is the truth. Michael Paco is going to be with us here until the top of the hour. We'll come back. We'll talk further with him. If you want to get involved with the Libertarian Party or want to get involved with your race, how do people do that?
Well, the best way to get in touch with us is to go to our website. It's lpar.org. And if you can find more information about all our candidates and contact information for all of them as well.
All right. So that's pretty easy. Okay. Libertarian Party of Arkansas. That's Libertarian Party, LP, Arkansas, AR.org. All right. A break, and then we'll be back, and we'll finish up our discussion when we come back on the Dave Elswick Show. spontaneity. All right, back. Let's finish this up with our guest, Michael Paco. He's the state chair of the Libertarian Party. He's also the Libertarian Party of Arkansas's banner carrier, so to speak, for the Secretary of State race here in the state as well. So, what would you tell, Republicans and Democrats alike, and independents, that voting Libertarian is not throwing your vote away? Because that's what a lot of people will say.
Well, because the vote is your opportunity to express your opinion, to express your will, your vote. And it's not a contest where you win a prize if you vote for the winner. So in an election like the ones we have here in Arkansas, where the outcome is pretty much preordained, given the polls and the ranking of the parties, if you vote for one of the two major parties, I think you're throwing your vote away, because your vote's going to be ignored. You're either part of the majority or part of the minority, and the politicians are going to do what they do anyway. But if we see a significant number of people start voting for libertarians and independents and saying, we don't want these limited two choices anymore, they've got to start paying attention. So I think a vote for a libertarian has more weight than a vote for either of the two major parties, because it's going to get noticed.
Does a libertarian have a bigger chance of being able to put together a coalition now than, say, if you're a Republican or a Democrat? If you're a Democrat, you're in Washington, D.C., you figure the Republicans aren't going to listen to you. You're at other places, the Democrats say, we'll listen to you, but the Republicans won't.
Well, our coalition is a mix of voters who are dissatisfied with the choices they're getting. And that covers some Republicans, some Democrats, but the overwhelming majority of Arkansas voters are independents. They're not registered with one party or another. And we've got to get those people to vote, to get up and go to the polls and say, hey, we want to have a stake in this. We're tired of being apathetic because we have no good choices.
All right. Take a look at what Michael Paco has to offer for Secretary of State. Look at this website as well to see what the Libertarian Party offers that perhaps the Democrats or the Republicans don't as well. That's lpar.org. lpar.org. You help and do yourself, a good deed if you go and look at what the other side has to say as well.
And before we go, I just want to put in a plug for Colt Shelby. He's our candidate for governor, and he's really building a popular coalition around the state. Keep an eye on that.
I think we've got him on here in the near future.
I hope you do.
I've talked to Val about getting him on, and we will. He's been on before. We'll get him on.
Good.
Talk to him. Thanks for coming in, Michael.
Thank you.
Appreciate you doing that. And I hope. He was ringing the doorbell, Tom, and we just couldn't hear him back here. We got to figure out how to get the doorbell back here so that we can hear it, when they're pushing it. He was here at 8:05.
Yeah, I was here before 8:05.
Yeah.
But well, I'm glad that I actually got through to Val, and
we got you on.
connected.
Okay, she's over there with her sons over in Memphis, and they're going to go see some hard rock tonight with the band Suffocation. So
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah.
what they're going to be doing. I got to get out of here. It's time for the news. Let's do that here on the Dave Elswick Show. All right, back with you here on the Dave Elswick Show. And something happened that time. We didn't get our news flash or our sports flash, so we'll find out what happened on that. Uh, New information coming out. David Morans, 78, who served as a senior advisor to Michael Fauci in the NIAID, that's the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, from 2006 through 2022, is now being charged with evading Freedom of Information Act requests over COVID-19 research grants. This from the DOJ. These allegations represent a profound abuse of trust at a time when the American people needed it most during the height of a global pandemic, that according to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. As alleged in the indictment, Dr. Morans and his co-conspirators deliberately concealed information and falsified records in an effort to suppress alternative theories regarding the origin of COVID 19. Government officials have a solemn duty to provide honest, well grounded facts and advice in service of the public interest, not to advance their own personnel or ideological agendas. Matt Margolis at PJ Media said Justin Goodman of White Coat Waste called the indictment a start, not a finish. Morans wasn't a lone wolf, he said, and other lab leak cover up lackeys are still in government raking in taxpayer funded salaries. Morin's indictment should be the beginning, not the end, of long overdue lab leak accountability at the National Institute of Health. Morin faces up to 5 years on the conspiracy charge, up to 20 years on each records falsification count, and up to 3 years on each concealment count. For years, the American public was told COVID's origins were settled, that questions were dangerous, and that the people asking them were the real problem. And there's a lot of us that fell into that category. You know it, I know it. There's a lot of doctors still that their licenses ran into all kinds of problems because of the way the establishment treated them, and said that what they were talking about, what they were pushing was a lie. A lot of things happened for folks that went on the internet and posted information. Many of you ended up in Facebook jail or worse because you talked about some drug that they were saying wasn't necessary, but there had been tests run, and it had shown that it showed a positive response, and how people who had the COVID strain was able to bounce back from it, things of that nature. I don't know if we'll ever get the honest to God truth of what happened with in COVID-19. I think Fauci had something to do with it because he had something to do with that lab over in China. Tom Cotton talked about that it was like at the very beginning of the outbreak. Remember, it was Cotton who brought it up, that it had escaped from a Chinese lab, and everybody attacked him, saying that that wasn't true. It didn't happen that way, blah, blah, blah. And for 2 years, they ran interference against him, and it came out, basically got out in the middle of the Biden campaign that, it didn't start no wet market. I remember talking about that and saying that it could happen it could come cross species from a bat, something like that, eaten and pushed. It seemed to me that all the initial people who came down with COVID-19 was in a hot zone right around that lab. I mean, there's a lot of people got sick. I remember in China, they were actually putting people in their apartments and then using a torch and sealing their doors so they couldn't get out. And people said, "Well, there's nothing to look at. There's nothing to be, worried about." And finally, we did admit that, we had a tiger by the tail, and we weren't exactly sure how we were going to handle it. And when you look at COVID-19, handling a pandemic is one of the hardest things to do in the world. Terry Yamauchi, who's head of infectious diseases here in Arkansas for many years, great guy, would come on my show. And he and I remember I mentioned to him that when they redid the movie Planet of the Apes, and the guy had gotten this virus that was going to knock off a lot of human population, had gotten to the airport and got on a plane, and it showed how the disease was going global and going all over the place. And he said that was a clip from that movie that he used when he talked about pandemics, when he talked to the people who came out to hear his talks about, how difficult it would be to stop it. And he said they still hadn't made the necessary moves to, keep it under control. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed, all right? Because that's the best that you can do right now. And, that another pandemic does not occur. I get tired when I hear them say, well, this, the virus has now, changed. Well, viruses changed almost daily, to be honest. You just hope that you can keep one step ahead of it. And they've done pretty well as far as COVID is concerned. I remember when they said that the only people that were, at first, everybody was a danger. And then if you weren't wearing a mask, that, you were a problem and things of that nature. And came to find out that the virus itself was smaller than the holes in the mask, which meant that you put the mask on and you weren't doing squat. It wasn't keeping anything from getting to you, and it wasn't keeping what you might have from getting to somebody else. The best way to avoid being, like getting the flu or getting just a common cold is to stay home. Just stay with the people and that you're aware of aren't sick. That's the way you have to do that. Now, washing your hands can go a long way. Terry Yamauchi was big on that. He was always pushing you should bump fists with people when it's flu season and there's colds running around or COVID-19 or whatever. Not shake hands and things of that nature, because that's a way of passing the disease. So I listened to Terry a lot. He passed away here a few years ago. It was a real loss, I think, with the medical community. He was great when he would come on the show and talk about it, because he was wide open about how you stop that stuff. But bottom line, just stay home. That's why I like when I see schools do, they're having a big flu outbreak and it's going rampaging. It's on a, you got a red alert basically going on because it's like fire moving through your students. Just tell them to stay home. Close the school down for a week. Clean the school, disinfect it, and have everybody stay home and if kids come to school and they're sneezing and coughing and all that, they should be parents should be notified and the child sent home to make sure that get tested and make sure that you don't have that kind of stuff. That's if you do those type of things, you can make it difficult to get the disease. Lord knows if we ever have a Captain Trips type of a situation. If you ever read the book The Stand, you know what Captain Trips is. It's a super flu, and it killed 98% of the population in the book. And how to keep people from getting the disease, but people wouldn't use the good sense God gave them, and it caught fire, and it in the book it just about wipes out the population. You go, that's just a fiction. Let me remind you that back in the day when the Black Death was around, it killed 2/3 of the world's population before it was stopped. And what they were being told to do, that they were being told to do to stop the disease, was making the disease be passed around. People were, it was the disease was being passed around from the rodents and the pills, that's their poop. And there was a lot of rats in places like London and Paris and places like that. And people would try to keep their homes clean, and they would sweep out their houses to keep the dirt and dust out. And all they were doing was putting the disease into the air, and it was just floating around, and people were getting it left and right. The people who lived, the majority of them, were in very rural areas. They didn't come into contact with people from the cities. It's why the urban areas are the hardest hit usually by the flu and colds and things of that nature, because you're forced to, be around people. Yeah, trying to stay away from people is not an easy thing to do. I remember during the COVID-19, we have equipment that allows us to do the shows from our house. And I did like 4 weeks in a row from a house. They didn't want me coming in. They didn't want anybody else coming in. The only people that went in were the people who had to run the board. And then they had to clean the board before. That's the device that you run that makes everything go out over the air. They were expected to sanitize that board before they touched it, and again before they left. And that helped keep people from getting sick. That's the way you do it. You just don't let people come into work and be around each other, and somebody sneezing into the air and passing the disease around. I forget how many hundreds of miles an hour, a sneeze comes out of your mouth and out of your nose, and if you don't cough or sneeze or whatever into the crook of your arm, it's a problem. You're putting other people at risk if you're sick. Just keep that in mind. All right. We've gotten out of flu season now. We haven't been having too much of a problem. But anyway, we got into talking about that because of this gentleman who worked with Fauci, and people were trying to get the necessary information that they thought they needed about COVID-19, and he was not, working through, the Freedom of Information Act, the National Freedom of Information Act. He wasn't giving out that information as he should have. So people were doing things literally, literally doing things in the dark. And they thought they were helping. And guess what? They weren't. They weren't. They were making things worse, like taking people that were ill, and you had rooms and uh, retirement centers that were opening and putting people in them, and literally you're putting people who had the disease in the area where the disease, if passed, would be more fatal than it would have been if it had been other places. Uh, Elderly people with immune diseases were catching it, and it was killing them like flies. I mean, uh, I don't know why people even thought of the guy running for New York, that was running for New York mayor, why they would even consider him, because he was responsible for thousands of deaths of elderly people in New York City by what he did with putting people in uh, homes for the elderly. All right, 19 minutes after 9, time for our break. We'll do that. When we come back, I'm going to tell you about California's wealth tax officially qualifies for the November ballot. The people of California just can't help themselves. And they just got to pass things that make things worse. They do. And I'll tell you about this one when we come back on the Dave Elswick Show. All right. Here on the Dave Elswick Show, like I was telling you, the folks out in California go beyond themselves to make things tough on themselves and tough on their fellow neighbors and coworkers. A uniquely destructive idea is now being decided by Golden State voters via ballot referendum. It has not even passed yet, and according to a new study, $777 billion has already fled the state. The Wall Street Journal's editorial board had this to say: progressives are testing how much ruin there is in California. On Sunday, they said they've gathered enough signatures to place a wealth tax referendum on the November ballot, even as a new study shows it is likely to result in less state revenue. Billionaires are already leaving the state. California's Tax Foundation visiting fellow Jarrett Wozak estimates in a new paper that, quote, reported departures already total $777 billion, and more quiet departures that do not draw media coverages are likely this year, since there are solid legal reasons to believe that the initiative's residency date and approach could be challenged successfully in court. By his estimate, Jarrett says that the wealth tax exodus could total $1.23 trillion and reduce annual state tax revenue by $3.53 billion to $4.49 billion, mainly from lower income tax collections. He calculates that the net present value of these ongoing losses outstrips the one-time revenue projected by the initiative's proponents' effects. That means the tax will over time cost the state more revenue than it raises. Only in California can you put something in that's supposed to raise money for your state, and it's going to cost your state more money than it raises. And the reason is it raises because of outmigration and slower economic growth. I mean, think about if you live in California, that $1.23 trillion, drain that from your treasury. And so now you're going to have to make decisions about programs that you want to have, that maybe you should have, that you're not going to have the money to be able to keep them going. I mean, there was an old op-ed writer that used to write for the Gary Post-Tribune. And he wrote when they had the outflux of people in Gary going to the suburbs because the drug war in Gary was so bad. And it came out that the mayor allegedly was involved with it and was using the family, the group that was in Gary, Indiana, doing the drug trade, that those are the people that he was depending on for his protection. Anyhow, that they figured that, you know, the writer said, I remember his last op-ed that he wrote for the Gary Post was, "Last one out of Gary, turn out the lights." And that's the way it is in Gary, Indiana. I remember when Gary was a viable, vibrant place to live. It isn't any longer. I mean, there's several reasons for that. I mean, the steel mills at one time used to employ nearly 6 million men. Now it's a fraction of that. It's a shadow of itself. And where there used to be like 9 steel companies right there on the lip of Lake Michigan, there are 2 now. The last 2 standing are USX, and they're trying to sell themselves off. I mean, the FTC stopped the sale of U.S. Steel to a Japan firm. That didn't happen. And then there's Inland Steel. And Inland Steel is a smaller steel company. My dad worked for them for 40 years. And, you know, I don't know how much longer they can hold on with the way that the market is for steel here in the United States. And we've been trying to protect them because uh, the folks out in Canada are undermining a lot of the things that are going on, economically, and underselling us as far as uh, steel prices go. That's affectionately called dumping, is what they call it. So we're a country uh, puts in a whole lot more and sells a lot more steel at a very reduced cost to put people out of business that make steel in the market that you're trying to get over. And you take the loss for a while until the companies that are being forced to try to meet your lower prices and can't, and then they decide that they'll get out of the business, and maybe your company buys them then, and then along the way you raise the price of steel. That's the way that business works at times. It's very predatory at times. Uh, that happens in steel. That also happens as far as something like food commodities like wheat. We've got countries that undervalue their wheat to try to uh, put the farmers out of business here in the United States, and that's succeeded at times. So things that happens. There's laws against it, but those laws are dependent upon the government, keeping those laws upheld. All right, we got 15 seconds to news. We got news coming your way. We'll take a break, and then we'll come back and talk more about this as we speak on the Dave Elswick Show. All right, we continue. Here it is, a Wednesday. We're halfway through the week, and of course, I call this now closer to Friday than we were on Monday, and that's a true statement. Tomorrow, we'll have the folks on from Bumper to Bumper in the first hour. Duck won't be here tomorrow. He's out on doing some vacationing, so we'll have probably Blake in to take his place, and then I don't know who are going to be the people who join us from the certified service centers tomorrow, but they'll be here from 7 to 8 o'clock. You'll want to listen from 8:05 to 8:30 because David Fisher will be on, and he's our economist who will talk about the economy that we have right now in the United States, and he's going to give you some cautionary notes. He's going to give you some positives as well. I mean, look, he runs a company that sells precious metals like gold, silver, platinum, that type of thing. And if you haven't moved some money, if you've got, some 401k money available that, you would like to move and in the precious metals, I would highly recommend. This is an unofficial endorsement of this. All right, I'm not an economist. I just know that I've moved money in to gold and silver, and I'm making a little bit of change off of it. And I kind of got to do that because I'm in my 70s now, and I'm still trying to make up from the last the .com downturn that we had on the stock market. So I'm trying to make money up so that I'll have money to spend when I'm not working anymore. And there will come a time, I promise you, it will come a time. Hold up my hand, all right, just like a Boy Scout here. Yeah, see, there you go, 3 fingers. Bottom line, and tell you that I do intend to retire, and sooner rather than later, because I'm at that age now that there's some things that I'd like to do that you know make they have more positive impact on me than having to wake up sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning to get ready to come into work. I'll just be honest. You start getting tired of that after you've done it for a few you know decades, and that's the way it is with me. Uh, let's talk about that. The King of England was here yesterday in Washington D.C. He's up in socialist land, New York City, today. Doing his thing. He'll feel a little bit more, I guess, at home in New York City because the UK is a socialist, a democratic socialist nation. That's what they are, and it is what they do. So let's talk about yesterday. Uh, that President Trump welcomed King Charles III. He did so with a remarkable address outside of the White House. President Trump saying, "Here in the shadows of monuments to George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, honoring the British king might seem an ironic beginning to our celebration of 250 years of American independence, but in fact, no tribute could be more appropriate. Long before Americans had a nation or a constitution, we first had a culture, a character, and a creed. Before we ever proclaimed our independence, Americans carried within us the rarest of gifts, moral courage, and it came from a small but mighty kingdom from across the sea. For nearly 2 centuries before the Revolution, this land was settled and forged by men and women who bore in their souls the blood and noble spirit of the British. Here on a wild and untamed continent, they set loose the ancient English love of liberty and Great Britain's distinctive sense of glory, destiny, and pride. And that's what it is, glory, destiny, and pride. So today we can look back on 250 years. Let us remember what has made our countries the two most exceptional nations the world has ever known. And together, let us go forward with even stronger resolve to carry on our sacred devotion to liberty and to the traditions of excellence that have been our shared gift of all mankind. Nice address from the President of the United States. Nice job. King Charles III, he addressed a joint session of Congress yesterday. A speech from British royalty will not, in and of itself, repair the breach that has strained relations, but the king did well. He was a bit more political than was Trump, but he captured the unique bond between our two nations. King Charles said that the founding fathers were bold and imaginative rebels with a cause. 250 years ago, or as we say in the United Kingdom, just the other day, by balancing contending forces and drawing strength and diversity, they united 13 different colonies to forge a nation on the revolutionary idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They carried with them and carried forward the great inheritance of the British Enlightenment, as well as the ideals which had an even deeper history in English common law and the Magna Carta. These roots run deep, and they are still vital. The story of the United Kingdom and the United States is, at its heart, a story of reconciliation, renewal, and remarkable partnership. From the bitter divisions of 250 years ago, we forged a friendship that has grown into one of the most consequential alliances in human history. And then the day ended with a state dinner at the White House as well. So we still get along with our British brothers and sisters, but we do see things differently between the two nations. Let that not be forgotten. There are things that we do that the British haven't done. For instance, I'll just name one. In the Constitution of the United States, in the First Amendment, it gives you freedom of speech. Nowhere in British law is that guaranteed in Britain. There is no such thing as a First Amendment in Britain, just like there's no First Amendment in Canada. That's why they can do some of the things that they're doing right now, where they're arresting preachers because the preachers are preaching out of a book that the government may not ascribe to. That's the Bible. And there's been men who have been, found guilty of hate speech because they mention that homosexuality is morally wrong, and they've been told that they can't do that. Over in the UK, there's not a Second Amendment. You're not guaranteed the right to own a firearm. In fact, I can tell you, they have the right in their government to take your firearms away from you. Very few people have even shotguns in their homes anymore because they had said that they wouldn't go after a shotgun if it's used for hunting. Well, they have done that anyway. And there's been people, there was a gentleman, this was a case about 3 or 4 years ago, it seems to me, but it could have been longer than that since a lot of water has gone under the bridge. They arrested him. A man had broken into his home and had threatened his wife, threatened him, and he was able to get to his shotgun and use it to neutralize the intruder, and he was found guilty of murder because he shot the guy in his house, and he wasn't supposed to have a shotgun, and he had a shotgun in his house. I guess if he had stabbed a guy to death, he never would have went to prison, but he ended up going to prison over that for like 5 years. Now that's a lot less time than a lot of people go to jail if they kill somebody. However, he still went to jail for 5 years because he owned a shotgun, not because he shot the criminal. He was protecting his castle as far as that was concerned. But he used a shotgun, and that was illegal. And that's what they found him guilty of. So there's a few differences in the UK versus the United States. They come here, they know a lot of people are armed. In fact, we can go back to World War II and look at the Japanese and why didn't, after Pearl Harbor, they had destroyed our Navy. Why didn't they, come on to the United States and invade the United States? And I can only quote from the general who planned the Pearl Harbor attack when he said, "There's a gun behind every blade of grass in America." That's why you watch what's going on in our country today, and there's people who are trying to uh, take away the power of the United States, and they're getting some of their people elected to be mayors of the cities and things of that nature. They're doing it that way and not trying to come over and physically take it from us. And the reason being is that the bloodshed would be incredible on their side. They could come, they might try. I think that they would find they would not succeed because of the way Americans feel about their freedoms that they have in this country. All right, we got about 9:47. We got to get a break in. Let's do that. And then we'll come back and we've got one more hour of the Dave Elswick Show. We got a few minutes left in this hour, and then we got a full hour still remaining in front of us here on the Dave Elswick Show. So don't run away. We got plenty of things to talk about. A story that's kind of flowing under our radar right now is something that was announced yesterday, and that is that the UAE is going to be leaving OPEC. Now, what does that mean? They're the third largest oil producer after Saudi Arabia and Iraq. Well, it's a major blow to the oil cartel. The Wall Street Journal was explaining this in an article that they had out yesterday afternoon. The war in Iran has piled on more pressure by, making rifts among the Arab countries at the core of the group, and by closing the Strait of Hormuz, through which the group's biggest producers export most of their oil, what makes it impossible for the group to influence the market during its biggest supply shock. The UAE is in a relatively privileged position with the ability to circumvent the blockage in the strait by routing more than half of its oil exports across the country. Withdrawing from OPEC will give it more freedom to make investments to expand its output and adjust to the uncertain future of the waterway. The withdrawal of the UAE could be devastating to OPEC. More on that from the Journal again when they said, and I quote, "It's the hardest blow ever." That's according to a senior oil analyst of commodities data at a company called Kepler. It raises the question about whether OPEC can survive. The New York Times, in its reporting, explained that the potential impact on prices, its departure from OPEC, means little for oil prices at the moment because of the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran has forced producers across the Persian Gulf to slash production. But in the long term, the move could contribute to greater volatility since less oil will be subject to production controls. Could mean that oil will cost less, not more. If it costs less, those countries will make less money. The UAE was the third largest oil supplier in OPEC after Saudi Arabia and Iraq. So here's the short of it. It's going to make the Strait of Hormuz considerably less relevant. John Spencer calls it a game changer. Iran's massive strategic blunder was playing that card being weaponizing the Strait of Hormuz, what Secretary Rubio called the economic nuclear weapon, motivating all Gulf states that they should create alternatives, ultimately bringing market stability and removing Iran's option to use the strait as a weapon. Arab writer Ahmed Khalifa said this: after leaving OPEC with its pipeline bypassing the Strait of Hormuz, the UAE can now ramp up freely, potentially adding around 2 million extra barrels a day and helping break the high price grip, that according to Khalifa. An earlier argument also from John Spencer on bypassing the strait, quote, the Strait of Hormuz is not an unavoidable fact of geography. It's a problem of infrastructure and strategy. The world has spent decades defending it. Now the world needs to start investing in ways of bypassing it. And sustained risk should provide enough market pressure to accelerate those alternatives. So, this is something that I've talked about, and we'll talk about it a little bit more right now because we got about 4 minutes left, and that is, if all these countries that are producing oil now are not going to, play nice with each other, well, that will mean oil will be cheaper in some places than it is in other places. It's where the market starts determining winners and losers, not governments. Governments get together and form groups like OPEC, and since they've done that in the 70s, they carried a big stick. What's happened now is that the United States, who is the biggest user of petroleum, now doesn't depend on the Middle East for their petroleum. So we took that away from them. Now, if they break apart and out on the open market, oil is selling, let's say it falls to $75 a barrel. Who might be running a country in the Middle East and goes, if we sell it for $70 a barrel, we'll get a lot, we'll make up for the loss of how much it costs by how many people buy our oil from us. And we'll see some real movements in the oil market, I believe. And it takes away, one of the big leveraging points that the Middle East has, that they've had here for the last 50 years with OPEC, by being able to control the price of oil. Nobody wanted to piss them off because last thing you want is another, 70s type day in America when people have to look at their license plate and see if they can fill up today or not. Oh, you don't remember that. That's right. You're younger than I am. Used to be at one time, if your license plate ended in a positive number, you could fill up like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If it was a negative number, you could fill up on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. That's the way it worked. All right. And people were running out of gas. You'd see long lines at gas pumps that went, for half a mile. People trying to get to a gas station that was charging a nickel less a gallon. It's amazing. Really was. I remember that's the reason I bought a Datsun, which if you look at them today, they're Nissan. But I had a little Datsun that I drove because it got good for the time, got great gas mileage. That was in my mind. It's like that's the reason I didn't want to buy a Hummer. I didn't like how that used up gas left and right. It drank it. It didn't sip it. It drank it. So I ended up looking for better gas mileage. And my car that I bought when I came home from Guam, I bought a K car. Some of you remember what a K car is. Most of you probably listening to my show don't have a clue what I'm talking about. Lee Iacocca saved the auto industry because of the K car. All right, I got to take a break. Let's do that, and we will do so, and then I'll be back for the final hour here on the Dave Elswick Show, and we'll check in on some other news that we haven't talked about yet. Final hour of a Wednesday show here on the Dave Elswick Show on 101.1 The Answer. Glad that you joined us today. If you haven't been with us the whole time, Tommy, you take care of putting us on other platforms and stuff. If people have missed portions of the show and they want to go back and listen to it, what should they do?
Well, they can go back on YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and catch anything they've missed.
Okay. So they can find the whole show there?
Yes, sir. They sure can.
That's great. I love it that way. I knew that. And what's impressive is that, Tommy would even tell you that we're all kind of shocked that so many people have been using the other platforms to go back and listen to a show that they missed. I'm kind of surprised. I thought most people like to listen to the show live, but the problem of that is that, unless you're driving into work or whatever, you're going to miss parts of it. And maybe you drove in and you were in your car from, let's say, 7:20 until 8:00. Well, you missed the whole interview I did today with Congressman Westerman, and he had some important things to say about what's going on in Washington. So if you did that, by the way, and you missed Westerman, go to any of those other platforms that Tommy just mentioned, and you can listen to the show and hear it. All right, the Supreme Court today is hearing cases impacting the Trump administration's deportation efforts. This is the last day of regular arguments for the term. Last thing that they're dealing with. At issue is whether or not the administration can strip temporary legal status from various immigrant communities, opening the door for deportation most immediately. Haiti and Syria, they've talked about this. Amy Howe at SCOTUS blog said the Trump administration argues first that courts cannot review DHS decisions to end the TPS designations for Haiti and Syria. It points to a provision in the law establishing the TPS program, indicating that, quote, there is no judicial review of any determination, unquote, of the DHS secretary with respect to the designation or termination or extension of a designation of a foreign state. Quote, this means the government emphasizes that if a lawsuit like these, quote, is directed at a specific TPS designation, termination, or extension, it is unreviewable. Carrie Severino of the Judicial Network says that the consolidated temporary protected status cases argued by the Trump administration were Trump versus Miat and Mullen versus Doe are very similar to prior cases where the court has stayed lower courts that blocked TPS terminations. SCOTUS should reach the same conclusion here. Congress made clear in the Immigration and Nationality Act that for temporary protected status, quote, there is no judicial review of any determination regarding, quote, the designation or termination or extension of a designation of a foreign state. In other words, what the Trump administration has been doing is consistent with the law. So we'll see if the Supreme Court, it's going to be a split decision, I'll tell you that right now. I would think that, 6-4, probably 6-3, going to be the way that 5-4 people see this. and that they don't have to, let these people be able to get bail and things of that nature. When they make their decision, they make their decision. That's basically what this is saying. And the lower courts have ruled against Trump, but I don't know the judges that have put in injunctions on him and things of that nature, whether they were put in by Obama or they were put in by Biden or who. We don't know. Or we may know, and I just haven't had time to go digging in through every one of the cases and looking at the judges that are being called to make these decisions. A lot of the problems that we've had here in the last few years have been Obama judges that have thrown the proverbial wrench, the monkey wrench into the workings and caused problems for what's going on. Right now, the big deal, up in D.C. is King Charles's visit, and I figure I told you what the president said. I told you what the king had to say yesterday when he talked to our Congress, and I figured that was enough. You didn't need to hear the side stories that Camilla, the queen, didn't wear her tiara and all that kind of crap. You don't really care, to be honest. I don't know how much you care that King Charles is over here, to be honest with you. I'll be honest, I could care less. I'm kind of surprised that they drove up in cars and that he didn't make them, pull him in a carriage. I am kind of surprised on that. Pete Hegseth causing some people to have, heartburn today. He is, Hegseth and chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane, are set to testify before the House Armed Services Committee. In fact, I think they're there right now, and there are things that I think Hegseth is saying that is really freaking people out a little bit. You got the UN nuclear chief. This is an important story. Iran's highly enriched uranium is likely buried at the Isfahan site, is what he's saying. The head of the UN nuclear watchdog says much of Iran's highly enriched uranium is likely still at the Isfahan nuclear complex, buried in tunnels. The International Atomic Energy Agency's best estimate is that a large share of the material stored there before the 2025 war remains there, according to the IAEA Director General, and his telling of the Associated Press today. The IAEA has satellite imagery showing the effects of recent strikes, but has not been able to return to the site to confirm the uranium status or verify whether agency seals are still intact. Inspections at the site ended when last year's war broke out, leaving the watchdog to rely on imagery, prior records, and outside information as it tries to track one of the most sensitive elements of Iran's nuclear program. An IAEA spokesman says Iran has 440.9 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60% purity, which is close to weapons grade. And the IAEA says that roughly 200 kilograms is believed to be stored in tunnels at Isfahan. That unresolved stockpile keeps Iran's nuclear material at the center of any effort to turn a fragile ceasefire into a broader agreement. The IAEA told the AP that any durable deal is going to require full inspections and likely some arrangement to remove or dilute the material. Now, to get that done, I'm sure the United States would be involved, and that is going to take us putting people on the ground there to get it down. For now, though, the basic problem remains unchanged. The uranium is believed to still be there, and no outside authority has been able to check it on the ground. Because if they start putting heavy duty excavating equipment there, they're probably going to get, the bomb, the mother of bombs, Indol bombs dropped on their head, to be honest. And so Iran's not going to go get it. Right now, the United States is not going, or Israel could not go, and neither could most of the European nations go in and lead the effort to excavate that out. But that's going to have to be done. And it'll be interesting to see it happen, to be honest with you, because we can't let them have it. They would use it to create an atomic weapon. That's what they would do. I'm sure some of those centrifuges that they had that we bombed have survived. I don't know if they've been moved to other places or whether, some places where it was bombed, they figured it was deep enough that they didn't do complete damage to them. So there's still things that need to be worked out there in Iran for what we have done to the military. One of the reasons, the big reasons that we've done what we've done is to keep Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Can you imagine if they had a nuclear weapon and you've seen some of the crazy stuff they've done over the last, 47 years? It would not be good. I'll just tell you, it would not be good. And the countries who have nuclear weapons now are going to have to make sure that other countries don't get nuclear weapons because they can't be trusted with them at all. I don't know that everybody has nuclear weapons right now can be trusted, but we're stuck with them. All right. Literally, we're stuck with them. 19 minutes after 10. I'm going to take a break right now. And then again, we got some other news that we want to touch on here on the Dave Elswick Show. Just a moment ago, I was mentioning that Pete Hegseth, the war secretary, and his top general for the Joint Chiefs are talking to the House Armed Services Committee today, and they're talking about President Donald Trump's fiscal 2027 defense budget. And with it, it's a sweeping reset for the military. Hegseth is arguing and redirecting money away from woke and other non-lethal priorities and back into warfighting, munitions, and industrial capacity. This is why it's so important that we control Congress again after the midterm elections, because if the Democrats do, they will put forth a budget that does not do this. When you think of the military, you should not think about we're allowing transsexuals to serve in the military, and that we're not offering, transitional surgeries to help a guy become, quote, in his own mind, a woman. That's not what the military is for. What is the Let's have a discussion. What is the military for? All right. I used to hate the commercials that the Navy ran a few years back that said, the Navy, a force for good. Remember that one? A force for good. No, the Navy is a force to kick your ass if you get out of line, to protect this country. That's what the Navy is for. All right. It's not to take a bunch of progressive programs and experiment on, American men, fighting men and women, to see if it works. They are supposed to be the people that are called upon when war fighting is necessary, that they're going to be around, and we're going to give them the munitions and the industrial capacity to do that. We're going to make sure that Camden is making a bunch of, cruise missiles down there. That's where they make a bunch of them. Quote, the War Department, said Hegseth, will not be distracted by democracy building, interventionism, undefined wars, regime change, climate change, woke moralizing, and feckless nation building. That was in Hegseth's opening statement, just released at 9 o'clock our time. Quote, we will instead put our nation's practical, concrete interests first. We will defer war. We will advance Americans and American interests. We will defend our people. Peace is our goal, and in service of that objective, we will always be ready to fight and win decisively if called upon. As part of this mission, we are asking American taxpayers to fund the world's greatest military. Hegseth said the proposed $1.5 trillion defense budget would build on last year's $1 trillion top line and fund what he called 3 core goals: restoring the warrior ethos, rebuilding the military, and reestablishing deterrence. I'll tell you what, if the military does those 3 things, and they do them well, and they've been doing them well over the last few years, as we've watched our military have to take care of things that are going on in the Middle East and other spots in the world, the warrior ethos seems to be back. They're teaching our recruits, making sure that, they're meeting their weight standards and being able to run 3 miles and all the different things they can do as far as uh, meeting their physical requirements that they have to make. Rebuilding the military, and that's happening. I mean, you don't drop a bunch of bombs on one country and not replace those bombs. You've got to restock the stockpile and make sure that we have what we need when we need it to be able to inflict the maximum uh, war effort on those people that we can. And then reestablishing deterrence. And if you do the first two, you'll get the last one. Nobody will want to, cross your, uh, cross swords with you because they know that it means that they're going to get their butt whooped. We want people to feel that way. Look, if there's one thing that we've learned here in the last few years with the Ukraine war going on, the Russian military ain't as good as they said that they were. They haven't been able to win in the Ukraine at all, and you know Putin wanted to be done with this and moving on from this by now easily, and he can't because we and other nations are helping Ukrainians, keeping them supplied with munitions and training and things of that nature, so they can take on the the Russian juggernaut. That's what they're doing. I mean, uh, Putin is a dictator, basically, and with that in mind, he's ordering a lot of people to their deaths. Using the draft over in Russia. A lot of those people that are fighting in Russia, in the Ukraine, don't want to be there at all. Zip. And that's another problem they got is the morale within their military is down. All right, let's go get the news. We got a newscast for you, keep you up to date on what's going on in the rest of the world here on the Dave Elswick Show. All right, so I'm happy with what Hegseth's telling. I guess it's the Armed Forces Committee that he's in front of today, and that he's laid out the three different things, uh, the three main PowerPoints, if you like, that he's trying to get across to Republicans and Democrats. I got to believe that there's even some Democrats that are on that uh, particular committee that are serious about us having the best uh, military in the world, and want to see things uh, go correctly here in the country, and when we need to use the military in the areas of the world where our military's might is being used. Now, Trump has, right now, his he's zeroed in on the King of England's being here and things of that nature. But he met oil executives at the White House Monday. Big meeting for them, and they were talking the Iranian war and oil amid the Strait of Hormuz blockade. And with Trump leveraging the shutdown of Iran's oil industry, he's been urging the world to come to the U.S. for its oil in lieu of Iran's. You might as well, because you're not going to be able to get oil from Iran. Uh, uh, the Chinese still trying to get some, and Iran is trying to send it by rail car. Not the easiest way to just to send oil in another part of the world. Uh, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said earlier this week that the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz was the equivalent of an economic nuclear weapon. That's his words, not mine. To leverage Iran toward giving up its nuclear weapons aspirations. Trump meets with energy executives a lot to get their feedback on domestic and international energy markets. The executives discussed a lot of topics on Monday, including domestic production, progress in Venezuela, oil futures, natural gas, and shipping. The executives all spoke highly of the actions Trump has taken to unleash American energy dominance and expressed support for what the president is doing for global oil supply under the circumstances, sources have told Fox News. For instance, let me take you back a few years. Let's take you back to the 70s. Let me take you back to when Carter was president. And you who lived here in Arkansas saw his policies up close and personal. And people in Texas saw his policies up close and personal, where he was, we needed the oil to mitigate prices, and we didn't do it. We capped oil wells instead of pumping oil out of those wells. And that was, his stupidity of trying to start at that point paying attention to climate change and Mother Earth and all the rest. I mean, remember, Earth Day didn't start until 1971, so that was getting towards the end of Carter's term. And when I look at Jimmy Carter, and I think, for instance, I've talked to people from the oil company down south here in Arkansas about how many wells that they had to, not that they wanted to cap, but they were told to cap by the federal government. It's really amazing. I mean, you go out to the Permian Basin, talk to some of the people out there. I know a lot of you go, well, Dave, I've lived my whole life here in Arkansas. Well, that should do some reading, number one. And number two, you should get out of your backyard once in a while. You should go down, Permian Basin, the day's drive. Go down there and meet with the people and talk to them about the industry that they're part of, the oil industry. You'd come away with a lot better understanding of what's going on. So the executives are all speaking highly of the actions that Trump has taken. He's doing just the opposite of what Jimmy Carter did. All right, that's the best way I can put it for you. He's just doing the opposite of it. Trump is looking longer at a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. He's reportedly told aides. Now this is hearsay. Okay, let me make that clear to you right now. He's reportedly telling his aides. Now, is that the guy that runs, next door to the 7-Eleven and picks him up some Cheetos, or is it really a serious aide that he's talking? You don't know. I don't know either. But he supposedly has told aides to prepare for a longer blockade of Iran, betting sustained economic pressure in and around the Strait of Hormuz will force Tehran to back down on its nuclear weapons aspirations. Well, that's what it's supposed to do. So if it does that, it makes things better in the Middle East. Trump, pursuing peace through strength, is willing to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed off to Iran's global oil industry as a pressure point to get the shaken leadership to give up designs to ultimately still have a nuclear weapon. Trump publicly argued earlier this week that the pressure campaign is working, saying Iran is nearing a state of collapse, while officials maintain the blockage has given Washington leverage in any future negotiations. The main thing that they have to get is to find out who it is they've got to negotiate with. Trump has temporarily ceased his major bombing campaign as of April 7th. I haven't talked to any of my friends down in Barksdale, Louisiana, about B-52s flew out of there a couple of weeks ago. I wonder if they've returned, because we were looking at bombing power plants and bridges, and they were bringing in the B-52s to do the high-level bombing that was going to entail. And they, I don't know if they come back or not, but those bombs haven't rained out of that clear sky over in Iran yet. See, that's the thing about B-52s that unnerves the enemy, and that is they're flying so high when they drop their munitions. You don't hear them, you don't see them, you don't know they're even in the area until the world as you know it turns to utter chaos around you. So I figure that they're sitting someplace. If they're called, they'll be ready to go. I'll guarantee you that. Trump has temporarily ceased that bombing campaign as of April 7th, but Iran has long sought to delay talks on giving up its nuclear weapons program. Trump ended the JCPOA and has vowed Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, and that's good. But Iran, we've hit the 60-day mark now, and so there's going to be things brought into question about what the president can do without congressional approval. So that's going to have to be dealt with as well. And that's why Hegseth is up there on the Hill talking to the committees in the Senate and in the House. And, Trump still, carrying a big stick and giving words of warning to Iran. He might be willing to remain under a ceasefire in pursuit of peace, he says, but he's not willing to allow Iran to delay talks on ending its nuclear weapons aspirations. Well, I want to see what the president means by he won't let them drag this out, because it seems like to me that's exactly what they're trying to do. And as I like to say, and in the military they say this: finally, push is going to come to shove, and when we get to that, uh, president's already said his targets, and he's gonna drop weapons on those power plants and on all of those bridges that allow people to get out of Tehran and other areas of Iran. Trump wrote early today on Truth Social that Iran can't get their act together. They don't know how to sign a non nuclear deal. They better get smart soon. The message underscores Trump's frustration with the stalled diplomacy that's happening right now, notoriously an Iranian strategy as it works towards attaining a nuclear weapon, something Trump has long declared would never be allowed to happen. Recent reporting has pointed to tension around possible U.S. Iran talks, with Trump and his advisors signaling skepticism about Tehran's willingness or ability to finalize terms. And that's the problem right now. We don't know who's in charge. And, you don't go in and just start knocking people off left and right and not making sure that somebody can make a decision. Right now, there's a lot of people that are over in that part of the world that don't want to say that they're one of the people who can make decisions, because we've been playing a pretty successful game with the Israelis of whack-a-mole. You stick your head up and you get hit with the mallet. All right, and then it's for other people to decide whether they're going to stick their heads up or not. I mean, we've killed about the first three levels of the people who were in charge in Iran, and most of them involved with the religious sect, and we needed to help get rid of them. But we're going to have to see how this plays out. I've said that a million times now. We got to see, and that's all we can do right now. Is we got to wait and play the game, and then you get to the point, if you keep seeing the other side doing the same thing over and over again to delay, then you're going to have to decide who gets the mallet, so to speak. All right, 10:48, 12 minutes until 11. We're almost done with a Wednesday edition of the Dave Elswick Show. I'll come back here in a moment, tell you a little bit about tomorrow. We'll talk about that and what you can expect from the show here on 1011 The Answer. let me finish a story that I had started back at the 8 o'clock hour. And we knew we were supposed to have a guest come in. We thought that he wasn't going to show, and we found out that he was stranded out in the hallway. And we got him on, and I kind of let the story about the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, drift away. They've come under renewed scrutiny after the Justice Department last week released a sweeping indictment of the controversial leftist group. Here's what they were doing. The SPLC is alleged to have funneled millions of dollars to hate groups. Now, these are groups that they're supposed to be fighting against. Well, they were giving them money so that they could continue to do their hateful things. And then the SPLC would use it to raise money for their group. Anyway, they were alleged to have funneled millions to folks like the Ku Klux Klan from 2014 to 2023. The group claims it was paying informants, but critics say the SPLC was simply propping up its own targets, most notoriously by allegedly helping fund the infamous 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. We all remember that. Okay. Once the SPLC labeled us, and this is the folks from Moms for Liberty speaking, it gave people in my community and even extended family justification for really vile behavior toward me. I tried to protest and protect my kids from the hate I received, but it wasn't long before even they knew I was a target for people's hate. Kit Hart of Moms for Liberty, membership engagement coordinator, told the Daily Wire. And it's a story the Daily Wire has done on the SPLC. It's something no innocent mom should be subjected to. A group of us had dinner reservations offsite, and the moment we exited the building, we were berated and screamed at, Hart recalls. The protesters had been waiting all day for members of our organization to leave the door of the hotel to shove signs in our faces, curse us, and show every sign of aggression you can think of. As we were walking to our Uber, we needed to be escorted by the security from the hotel. An LGBTQ plus group called the Agenda PAC obtained the hotel's room numbers of Moms for Liberty members, and while they slept, left door hangers on their hotel rooms that said, "Please disturb fascism in progress." Did you know a designated hate group is staying at this hotel? Pennsylvania State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, who is currently a vice chair of the DNC, chaired the Agenda PAC. A heavy police presence was stationed outside the hotel for the duration of the conference to keep attendees safe from protesters. Protesters carrying their pride flags and signs with hateful messages such as "Ban the fascists," "F the Nazis," and Klan cookie Karens camped outside the hotel for the duration of the conference and harassed women as they entered or exited. One group of moms was swarmed by a group of protesters when they tried to leave the hotel in an Uber, and several protesters had to be arrested. Despite the tensions and security concerns, the planned programming was uninterrupted, and President Trump commented on the SPLC label during his speech. The radical left is even slandering Moms for Liberty as a so-called hate group, President Trump stated during his speech. Can you imagine Moms for Liberty being a hate group? Yeah, I agree. No, not at all. I've worked with those folks, and they're farthest thing from a hate group. I'm telling you, these people are sick. The conference gained attention from national media outlets, which consistently associated the Moms for Liberty with the SPLC hate group label. A group of Democratic Pennsylvania state senators used the SPLC label to fuel their ongoing campaign to get the 2023 summit canceled. The politicians sent a letter to the Museum of the American Revolution, where a welcome event for the summit was held, asking that it cut ties with Moms for Liberty. Moms for Liberty, put plainly, is a hate group, they said. This is not hyperbole. On June 6, 2023, the Southern Poverty Law Center designated Moms for Liberty a hate group, and you know everything that the SPLC says is true, and specifically as an anti-government extremist group, the letter reads. The museum's leadership has demonstrated a lack of judgment in agreeing to host a hate group. Fortunately, the mistake can be fixed with a simple and elegant solution by canceling the Moms for Liberty event scheduled for June 29th. This reporter was present at the June 23 summit, the writer of this article, and can easily recall the throngs of protesters and increased security to avoid harassment from the mob of protesters outside of the hotel. Attendees exited the Marriott Hotel from a discreet side entrance and were covertly bused to the museum, where we were greeted by a raucous crowd screaming from behind a metal barricade, "Get the F out of here." And Philly is a trans city. Police officers acted as a human shield and formed a path that allowed us a safe entrance to the museum. So that's the way the SPLC, in their designated, affected one group. It affected a lot of groups. All right, I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning. Start talking to you at 7 a.m. The folks from the car show will be on with us, and they'll tell you, bumper to bumper folks will tell you how to keep your car running well and things of that nature. I don't know who's joining me tomorrow. David Fisher will be here to talk about the economy. We will talk to our Jewish contact from Atlanta tomorrow by computer, and then we'll also talk to Matt Smith. So it's a full show tomorrow here on the Thursday edition. I'll see you at 7 a.m. on the TV.